Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bramall Lane. I should have framed this a little bit better before we started. There we go. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Yorkshire. Welcome to Bramall Lane. The team news is out. Let's dive straight in. 3 changes for Norwich City. And this is how they line up this evening at Bramall Lane. Kovacevic in goal. Fisher, Medic, McConville and Tony Springett as the back 4. Matson and McLean as the midfield 2. Makama and Schwartau on either flank, with Jacob Wright in at number 10 behind Josh Sargent. The subs bench, Grimshaw, Duffy, Krizene back on the bench, Adalusi, Slimani, Forson, Marcondes, Jurasek and Mundell Smith. So 3 changes for Norwich City. Medic, Makama and Wright in for Darling, Forson and Marcondes. Probably natural for there to be a degree of rotation in a 3-game week, and obviously with some of those fitness issues. Great to see Duffy back, great to see Krizene back. The cavalry is returning. Paddy, what's your initial thoughts on that starting lineup? What jumps out at you?
Jacob Wright in the 10. First start for Clermont, I think I'm right in saying. Certainly first time we've seen him in the starting. He came on a game or 2 back, didn't he, in the 10 role at Carr Road. That's an interesting one, particularly if he goes well tonight against a good opponent who are now back on an upward curve. So, that's the standout for me. And Medic getting the nod. I guess he didn't have too many opportunities or alternatives to Harry Darling. No Cordoba quite yet. And in that context, Duffy probably, it's a bridge too far to put him straight back in. So, big opportunity for Medic. But you have to be concerned, if we're being brutally honest, against the team who are going to be, as Philippe Clement said yesterday, physical, about duels. It's about balls into channels. If Jakub Medic gets turned, I fear the outcome. And we've seen it too often. If he gets isolated in those areas, it spells danger. And if he is playing on the left side of the two, and it's McConville on the right, then he's got Springett outside him. So that, to me, already looks a very vulnerable flank from a defensive point of view. But Matson and McLean, they get another chance. There's clearly a permanence to those two now, I think, under Clermont. If they're fit and available, they start in those positions. I like Markama coming back in again. I think he, in a game that could be quite physical and robust, he might be the type of profile that is better suited to maybe starting a game than a Forson or a Marcondes. So I like what he's done at the top end of the pitch. But my concern is defensively, because there's one absolute cast iron guarantee tonight. A Chris Wilder team will put this back 4 with Kovacevic under pressure, and will they be good enough to withstand that pressure? I have my doubts.
Well, one name that isn't in that Norwich City squad this evening is Mateus Christgården, not even on the bench, which is interesting. We will, of course, check that out with Philippe Clement post-game and see if that's anything injury-related. But I guess, Paddy, that back 4 is probably a little bit indicative of where Norwich City are at the moment. Obviously, Duffy and Krizene on the bench. We're not quite sure how much of this game they will be able to play, but seemingly if they're on the bench, not a huge amount of it, they are really stretched in that area now, aren't they?
Well, I mean, he underscored it yesterday. Tony, what other club or top end of the elite game in this country, Tony Springett comes back in and plays 60 minutes after he hasn't kicked the ball really for 2 years. I know he's been sort of training over the last month, 6 weeks, but still, that underlines the threadbare nature of their defensive unit. And, again, tonight, Medic didn't come on Saturday and really cover himself in glory, but needs must. It's too big a risk to go with Duffy from the start. Likewise, Krizene. So, but you would think the fact that they've travelled, the fact that they've trained a block of time now over this past week, that they're the first changes. Medic out, Duffy in if required, and for me, Springett, it's not going to do more than an hour again tonight. So maybe that's an opportunity to ease Krizene in with Cordoba coming over the horizon, hopefully for the weekend. So. But there's absolutely no doubt, you look at that back 4 and, Fisher and McConville, 2 very young men, really. Fisher more so along that development path in terms of first team minutes, but they're almost going to have to drag this back 4 through tonight, and that's a tall order for me. So Kovacevic needs to be far more secure, because you can guarantee Wilder and his analysts will have looked at his, choose my word advisedly, acrobatics at Vicarage Road, and they will look to probe for vulnerability. So there'll be a lot of balls raining in and around his head, set pieces wise. He's going to have to be better and more commanding than he was on Saturday at Vicarage Road, because if not, it's going to be a long night.
It is. No, Marcondes as well in that match day squad. So a couple of absentees. He is on the bench, is he? Someone said he wasn't on the bench.
He's on the bench.
Oh, there we go. I'm taking it from someone on here. I shouldn't. I literally read his name out 5 minutes ago. There you go. Definitely on the bench. Yeah. I was just looking at the Sheffield United team, which is very interesting. We'll come on to that in a moment. But I mean, on that point of physicality, Makama, Medic, right in at 10. It feels like an attempt to solidify the team for probably what is to come tonight, from what we'd expect from a Chris Wilder team, really, in terms of physicality and athleticism and energy as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that 5, and really, bar right, they're all very robust, physical, energetic players. Certainly this version of Maatsen that we're seeing now, McLean has that legs to get around the pitch, and Makama and Schwartau, young men, but athletically very robust and aerobically able to go and compete and get themselves up and down that pitch. So, and Sargent, of course. But Wright's the one where it's a bit more, hopefully that's where the creativity can come from, and he can knit those defensive-minded 2 midfielders to the front 3 behind Sargent. But, yeah, in a game that if Clement is setting it up from his analysis, it's going to be quite physical. And also, as well, those type of players, defensively, we talked about, Kovacevic could be under pressure. If Norwich are having to head balls out of their box, to have those options to come back into their defensive third, you can't underestimate that might be required tonight, because I've no doubt that, particularly with the team who are now 4 wins on the spin, have absolutely wiped the floor with Stoke here at the weekend. They will feel that they're going to turn up tonight. And I know Wilder was very cute, as he always is, in his pre-match media, and about don't be complacent, almost a message to their fan base as much as his players. You can't just turn up here and expect to roll over Norwich. I still think they will look at Norwich, look where they're vulnerable, look at that back 4 and keeper, and try and expose any fresh vulnerability. So, yeah, the more physical power they have in that 11, then probably the better to withstand what is going to be inevitably quite a stiff examination of that aspect of their craft tonight.
Well, you say that Sheffield United's team news is very, very interesting. 8 changes Chris Wilder has made to his team. The post from Sheffield United saying following illnesses and injuries in the camp, Chris Wilder makes 8 changes to his team. So they line up with Cooper in goal. It'll be Seriki, Bindon, Tanganga, and Burrows as the back 4. Arblaster, his first start since a very, very long-term injury in central midfield, what I will presume would be alongside Samare. You've got Chong in there, O'Hare in there, and I've said Chong, haven't I? And I'm trying to piece this together. It's not in formation order. Who have I missed? That might be it. With Ings and Tom Cannon as well. So 8 changes for them. A very different team to the side that has been putting wins together. Their subs bench: Davis, Hamer, Brooks, Zatterstrom, Campbell, One, Matos, Curtis, and Bamford as well. So that is how Sheffield United line up. Probably not what Norwich City would have expected, given the sheer volume of changes. To come back to Norwich, Paddy, and obviously feel free to add your thoughts on that Sheffield United team. But Jacob Wright is a number 10. There's been a big cry for him to start games of football. That seems to be where Philippe Clement is favouring him. I mean, you asked him about him a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and he said that on the ball, absolutely no doubt about his ability. It was off the ball maybe, and that inevitably has seen him pushed higher up the pitch. What do you make of him in that position?
Well, I like it. That could prove to be a very astute move from Clement and his coaching staff, because it's pretty clear now. I've said it already on tonight's team news. Maatsen and McLean will be the 2 now in front of that back 4 most weeks, I think, from here. Even though he pushed back on that sort of narrative a week or 2 back, but it's very clear, these first 4 or 5 games where he's been able to go with those 2, he's gone with those 2. So if you're Jacob Wright, you're not getting in those positions. But I think there probably is a vacancy. Marcondes in certain games, yes, he can add something in terms of his technical ability, but then in other games he tends to go missing and he can be on the periphery. Forson is only coming back from stop-start, really injury-wise, so I don't think he's necessarily could go in there and do a job, but I don't think he's pushed himself really into the front rank. So for me, there's a vacancy there. Quistgarden will obviously, as you rightly say, Connor, will get the gen on why he's not in the squad tonight. But the fact he had come out of the side, and Philippe's explanation was he didn't think him and Sargent could play as a 2 at this moment in time. He clearly doesn't see him in that 10 role. So there you go, Jacob Wright, on you go. There is a window of opportunity. And what we know he is a very technically accomplished footballer who can see pictures and can bring players into play. So if he has that intelligent movement to get in those pockets between maybe Sheffield United's midfield and back four to then sort of supply a sergeant, and that I'd love to be leaving Bramall Lane tonight and saying, wow, that was an inspired piece of coaching, and Jacob Wright has really found his niche in this Norwich side. Wouldn't that be great, irrespective of the result? But for that to be the case, I'd like to see a degree of personality from him, as well as appetite and desire. He won't have been happy with how it played out under Manning. Started the season, got himself red carded himself, but there was how many games thereafter where the team wasn't functioning in the midfield areas, couldn't get a look in. Got a few minutes off the bench, I think Derby onwards, but he will have been very frustrated. And now is his opportunity. New head coach who trusts him clearly in that role. Go out and show what you're all about tonight. And who knows, you might find yourself in this team going into the festive period.
Yeah, it's a really interesting attacking line. That feels to me to be quite transitional, which is maybe indicative of the type of game that Philippe Clement is expecting tonight. And to be fair, we saw Norwich on Saturday. Some of their better moments in the first half was when they won the ball and they sprung on the counter-attack with obviously Schwartau, with Forson as it was on the other side. But Makama's pace and power could be a really powerful set of characteristics to have on that right side for Norwich tonight when they go into attack in those moments that do arise here.
Well, just go back to Vicarage Road. He gets introduced into that game, a very almost basketball feel to that second half, and his athleticism to stretch the play and to run the channels. Yes, we know he spurned an unbelievable chance when he went through and he had the keeper to beat, but there was 2 or 3 other moments there. He did force the keeper into some work, and the ball rebounded, and Sargent, unbelievable block from Pollock, I think it was, and the ball went over the line, but he made things happen, and he was a presence. And that's, I'm sure, what Clement wants from the start tonight, that he can really almost ruffle a few feathers in terms of that Sheffield back line and don't make it a game where it is Norwich grimly retreating to Gavakovic's goal and trying to repel Sheffield United. You've got to take a degree of confidence now from that lineup from the home side. If there is illness riven through their camp, because making 8 changes, I'm sure, wasn't in Chris Wilder's mind. He would want continuity to build on these results they've had, 4 wins on the spin. So there's now an opportunity for Norwich to actually try and impose themselves and try and make it a game that they want, rather than get pulled into a bit of an arm wrestle, because I don't think that would suit necessarily. But that said, if it does require those elements, then in Makama they've certainly got a player who so far in a Norwich shirt seems very comfortable in those type of environments. So, yeah, thank you. For me, it's I've got a degree more confidence than I did have before the team news dropped, if I'm honest, Connor.
Yes, yeah, it's an interesting one, that Sheffield United team. 8 changes, out of their team. Some of these names, for example, Hamer, Brooks, Campbell, Bamford, all of which are on the bench, of course, but not involved at all. McGuinness, McCallum, Veerveld, who's come in on a free transfer and had a really big impact. Saidi Peck, who's been a key part. That's been the midfield too, Veerveld and Peck, who have really turbocharged this campaign for Sheffield United compared to where they were. Without that, you really do sense some opportunity for Norwich, which, again, we talk about luck this season, and of course you do make your own luck to an extent in this game, but they haven't had those moments where, for example, they've turned up and a team has been ravaged by illness or injury and had to make 8 changes. It's not something we've seen this season, so hopefully that's something they can utilise in their favour in what is, Paddy, a very tough week. We mentioned Watford in their home record. They only lost once at Vicarage Road this season. That was in September. Obviously, Norwich beat them in the Cup as well, purely in the Championship. They come here tonight against the team who's taken the most points, scored the most goals over the last 4 games. And then on Saturday, if you zoom out to 6, Southampton are the team with the most points, the most goals. So it's a tough week against teams that are in form. This is going to be a really good test for Philippe Clement, but ultimately, performances are one thing, but as we know, the situation that Norwich are in now, if they lose both of those games, irrespective of performances, the points tally could be significantly worse than what it is at the moment. They haven't really got any time for kind of tests and to kind of see where they're at from a progress perspective. Sooner rather than later, they are going to have to start winning points irrespective of opponent.
They are, and on that point, if they don't get any tonight, then that's Birmingham away, that's Watford away, that's Sheffield United away, all under Clement, and they've got no points. And in the situation they're in, it's not going to come just purely at Carrow Road. They're going to have to be able to go away, dig in, withstand the uncomfortable moments, which they didn't do really in that second half against Watford, and come off those pitches with something to add to a pretty paltry tally of points at the minute. And it's alarming now how big the gaps now feel when you just look at really even the clubs like in the first 4 or 5 places above Norwich in the table now. They need to get something going now in terms of ticking that scoreboard over, if you like. And yes, this is a tough assignment, as Watford was, but really they beat themselves at Watford. It wasn't, and Clement alluded to this yesterday, it wasn't Watford really moved through the gears and Norwich couldn't go with them. It was self-inflicted blows for those goals, and not just Kovacevic. There was some poor errors. Makama letting, I think it was Bowler, run off him for the third goal. That was a bad error. So, tonight, to get a result in this environment against this team, even with the changes they've had to make, but a team on the upward curve, that would be a great boost, and it would really set up Saturday's game at home. And as good as Southampton are going at the minute, I'd still fancy Norwich at Carrow Road now against any team, because I think it feels like that might have been a corner turned, albeit there's still huge amounts of work to do, but it feels like maybe they've lanced the boil a little bit there. We get taking points from Oxford and then QPR, but they need to do it away from home as well, and they haven't so far this season, and they haven't at the start of Clement's reign. So tonight would be a good opportunity, I think, now we've seen that Sheffield United lineup, to try and put some points on the board, because that's the only way they get from 23rd in the table to into calmer waters now. They have to be consistent home and away. And as much as he keeps saying, quite rightly, it's don't worry too much or fixate too much on results. If the process is right, the results will come. That's all well and good. But, you look at the league table, and if they don't get something going pretty swiftly now, running into the festive period, then there's going to be too much ground to make up the other side, irrespective of what comes together in terms of players fit and available, plus what they had in January. It has to happen now, and it has to happen in these next few weeks.
How's it going to go tonight, Paddy? It feels, I think we both walked to the ground feeling like this was going to be tough. I mean, my opinion, even with 8 changes, you look at some of those names, and that Sheffield United team hasn't changed in that regard. But you have now, from a Norwich City perspective, to sense a degree of opportunity, however big or small, just to follow on the back of what you said there, really, in terms of where they're at. They have to utilise every kind of small percentage that they can at this stage.
Alex Matos on their bench as well, yeah, formerly of the parish. I like O'Hare and Hamer with my Cov bias, but at this level, very good attacking players, and Danny Ings still turning a leg. So Tad Chong, was he like at Burnley? He did from a year or two back when he was on loan.
Yes, and he was at Luton as well. Wasn't
he? So there's some quality in that 11, irrespective. And like you say, Arblaster, who was a bit of the big hope here, and then he got a bad injury. So.
And first game since November 24 for him.
Is it now? Yeah. Good keeper, Michael Cooper at this level. And Tanganga, he was the Millwall player, wasn't he? He was very highly rated at Millwall. So, maybe a shade easier in terms of if they've had to make, more so from a disruption point of view, if they've had to make 8 changes. That can't be ideal. But the players they're bringing in are not academy inexperienced, raw, naive. So, but that said, my only concern is just that back 4 for Norwich. We saw how it got exposed on Saturday, and with a jittery performance, Kovacevic. If that back 4 and Kovacevic can be a bit more solid, a bit more robust, withstand their ground a bit, collectively, individually, then there's enough in the forward areas to trouble this Sheffield team. But my fear is that, certainly whenever we come here, these crowd get behind their team and get a head of steam up. It's a devilishly difficult place to come. Norwich have got a terrible record in the last 9 games against Sheffield United. I don't think they've won any of their last 9 meetings. So I don't expect that really to change tonight. I'm going to go for a home win, 2-1.
Yeah, I'm going to join you. I think Sheffield United will have too much in the final one. And even if we look at their starting lineup, you look at the names they've got on the bench. I mean, Patrick Bamford is an English international, isn't he? Danny Ings, England international as well in their side. Tyrese Campbell, Alex Matos, Gus Hamer on the bench. Brooks has been in really, really good form as well. So they've got really good options from the bench, irrespective of the illness and injuries as well. Norwich, of course, have Anis Ben Slimani back at his former club as well. Ben Krizene, it's good to see him back. Shane Duffy back from injury. Matej Jurasek, Emi Markon. There's options on that bench as well. But yeah, I'm going to go for Sheffield United to shade it. I think with that back 4 that Norwich are playing with, coupled with the injuries that Norwich have, I think this could be a very, very difficult night for them, and it could just be about trying to see where they can get those performance levels and hopefully make this as competitive as they can for a really informed Sheffield United team.
It just popped into my head. I'm going on a tangent. The coach has arrived. It is on time. We've seen the coach. Definitely. So Chrissy W won't need to get too aerated about it.
Let's hope the team sheet has gone in on time as well.
What we would give for the same result as that particular day, because that was a 1-0, wasn't it? Where Angus Gunn. Was it? Was that the game where Angus Gunn he got hit with some objects, didn't he, from that cop over there? So that was an eventful afternoon. But Norwich came out the right side, and
I think they've just about forgotten it around here. They don't like to mention it.
Yeah. Well, they've had the best end of it over the last 9 meetings. But you wait, it'll be old wasting time the Norwich way if Norwich go in front tonight. So, but I mean, all the history is by the by. This is now about Clement and this group of players, injury hit or not, digging out results now, particularly away from Carrow Road. And if they can follow up what they've done at home in the last 2 games, did for probably about an hour against Watford in total, with a result here tonight, then it just fuels a bit more self-belief that Clement is in very short order managing to bring this group of players together and making them resilient enough to pick up enough points and have enough consistency to, over this next period, hopefully get themselves up and out of that top 3 and then look upwards as opposed to in the rearview mirror at League One, which is far too close for comfort.
It is indeed. Right, good stuff. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening. Pinkin.com, of course, the place this evening. We'll have all your coverage, analysis and reaction. Paddy will be speaking to Philippe Clement after the game, win, lose or draw. It's going to be interesting to see maybe what the omissions of Matthias Quiscoren is in particular, where that is hopefully, fingers crossed, not another injury. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you very, very soon for the next one.